Tuesday. He's not doing very well, and then, of course, Sister Betty's not doing well either. She's not in the hospital. They did move her to a nursing home, but neither of them are doing well. So I ask you to please remember Joe and Betty. Betty's in Mississippi Care. I think that's in our bulletin. But it's got to be, it's difficult enough with one of them being down, but with both of them struggling with their health, it's really a difficult situation for them. Sherry George, her surgery got moved to this coming week. I believe, Brother Carl, your surgery got moved, and Lorraine, you're going to have surgery as well. Same day? Really? Same day? All right. Oh, that'll be fun to take care of each other. But please remember them this week. Sherry's surgery and Carl and Lorraine's surgery this week as well. Saw Kim Fowler had her surgery, and everything went well, but I saw her leg all wrapped up on Facebook, and she was in a lot of pain. Kim Fowler, this is Bill and Bill's daughter. She had foot surgery on Tuesday, so please remember her. Fred Churchill fractured his foot this week. This is Lynn's husband, Fred. Of course, we all know Fred, and he'll be off for 4 weeks and goes back to the doctor. I think it says on the bulletin on 10/11, October the 11th. Vera Mooney's not doing well. Vera, of course, has been struggling with COVID. She was in the hospital in COVID isolation for several days. She got out and got to come home, but Randall had messaged me yesterday and said she was still having a lot of trouble and not doing very well. So please continue to remember her as well. I think that's all the updates. I'll have more. John got his medicine, so he already threatened to hit Ronald this morning, so I guess he's feeling better. I'm glad. I'm glad he's feeling better. I hope it continues to get better. It's been a long time coming, waiting on that medicine, and we're excited that he got it, and hopefully things will turn around again now. Nancy, she's in Columbus. Okay, remember her and her knee as well. Are any others that we need to update, John? Yeah. Who is that? Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, so that's Kathy that we got the text on yesterday, or is that different? Okay. Okay. All right. If you didn't hear John, of course, Judy's mother passed away, and her niece passed away this past week, their services. And then her Helen, who is the niece's mother, is in Tupelo losing blood and not doing well. And then, of course, we got the message yesterday on Kathy Weathers is also losing blood and not doing well. So please remember those families as well. All right, well, I'm not going to take up any more. Brother Jerry Bates is with us today, him and Sister Paula. It's good to have them with us today as he gives us a report out on the world evangelism and all the work that they are involved in out of Winona. Brother Jerry.
Good morning. Again, it's good to be with you. Of course, we appreciate so much your help and encouragement of our mission work that we've been trying to do for several years now. Everything is going very well. I just got back about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I had a good trip there. Well, I'll mention more about that here toward the end. But all of our work right now is still doing very well. Some people might wonder why we spend so much time with mass evangelism, and that's really what our focus is, of course. And of course, the one big reason is because the world's population is nearly 8 billion people now. Not, you know, it used to be just a little over 7 billion. Well, in just a few years, it's now almost 8 billion, according to the internet estimation, of course. Now, how are you going to evangelize a world of that many people? Well, some people might think one-on-one evangelism, what we need to be doing. Well, that's good, of course, but there's no way you can reach 8 billion people with that. And so mass evangelism, such as TV, radio, and literature, then they will reach people that you'll never be able to reach any other way. And I got a story to mention more about that here in just a moment. Right now we have 37 TV programs. All of those are in India. These are the different languages. These are the latest program we had is in the Marathi language. You see here that it began about 2 years ago. And altogether now they've already sent out about 17,000 courses and over 550 baptisms altogether. And to give you an idea of how far-reaching these programs are, one of the TV speakers over there had a phone call from one of the political leaders. I imagine at first he's probably wondering what is the political leader calling him, because you know India is very anti-Christian right now. Anyway, he wanted him to come to the hospital to see his mother. So he went to the hospital, saw his mother, and talked to her, and said she wanted to be baptized. After learning why, he said, well, I've been listening to your TV program for the last year. Now, probably he never would have come in contact with that family any other way. But through the TV, you see, you're able to reach people that you would never be able to reach any other way. And so that just shows the far-reaching effect of these TV programs. The stars there illustrate the different places that we have the TV programs operating. Now you might be wondering, looks like right in the center there's a big open area. Well, that's not as open you might think. The program in Hindi, which is in the Delhi, that reaches most of that area. And so they get contacts from those areas too. So therefore we're covering most of India with our TV programs. And of course India now has 1.4 billion people. It's very close to China as far as the world's largest country is concerned. We also have added several broadcasts since last year. Right now we have 2 weekly radio programs in the Philippines, 1 weekly TV program in Guyana. The Louis Rushmore, who is the editor of The Voice of Truth, he kind of takes care of that program and that work there. We have 2 weekly radio programs in Uganda, 1 weekly radio program in Zimbabwe. And we have just recently paid for 1 year's operating expenses for a radio station out of Liberia. A group of 3 churches in Tennessee actually bought the station back just a few months ago, and they did not have the operating expenses, and so we paid for the operating expenses at least for the first year. We'll see what happens after that. But I'll be going to Liberia. The plans are, at least on my next trip, to kind of get a better idea of what's going on there. And then for the last several years, we've been partially supporting a TV program in Ghana. And I'll be going there on the next trip toward the end of October, when I'll go on that one. And so you see that several more programs have come into effect ever since last year. And, of course, all those programs continue to bring great results. And the good part is that the Native people are doing all the follow-up work on these programs, of course. And, of course, the literature that we print in various places, they help them to do the follow-up work on the TV and the radio programs. This is one of the radio programs there in the Philippines. I was there in the Philippines back in June of this year. And, of course, we were there on Sunday. They broadcast on Sunday at noon. And, of course, I was there on Sunday, so I was able to take part in one of the radio programs. Now, you might be wondering, why are you taking a picture of a radio program? Well, they also film it. They have a cell phone there, and they film it and put it on YouTube and Facebook and Internet. So you have people really all over the world that's able to listen to it, even though they cannot get the regular radio broadcast. But this is an area of the Philippines in which the church basically was non-existent 2 or 3 years ago. And June, who is the one right at the very back there, he moved to this area. This was his hometown, and he moved this area about 2 or 3 years ago, but just before COVID started, and established a church there. And so this radio program is really helping establish the church in that particular area, and it reaches more people than he thought it did. At first he didn't know how many people it was reaching, but recently found out even on another island that it reached people that he did not know they were able to get it. So it's doing more good than he was thinking about even, and that's always good news there. Of course, we continue to preach in India. Every week I try to tape a TV program. We have a little studio there at the office, and I do the lessons and tape it and send it to the ones in India. And, of course, they put the introduction and conclusion on it to make it suitable for broadcasting there. And that's in English, of course. We have one English program in India every week. We're still working with one of the Bible schools there in India. This is associated with Bear Valley. They had a graduation back in March of this year. 11 people received their diploma. Of course, that's with John Dean. John Dean will be coming by here, I think, the 1st of October. So it's very soon you'll be able to see him, but we will not be here on that particular day. But one of the more recent programs that we began was the medical camps. One of our TV speakers were wondering how they can continue to reach people in the midst of a very anti-Christian culture. And of course, as we said before, India is very anti-Christian now. They're passing a lot of laws and restrictions, and really they want all Christian activity to take place inside the church building. Now, obviously, if you have all Christian activities inside the church building, then it's very difficult to reach out to anybody in the community. And we've even heard a lot of bad reports about people in India. For instance, just a few weeks ago, they were having a worship service in their own building, and a group of Hindus came in and demanded that they stop. Now, that's not really law. You can't really do that, but nevertheless, that's what they did. Of course, nothing was ever done about it. But that just shows the situation there in India right now. But anyway, his son, Abel, and that's his son right there, and his daughter-in-law are both doctors, and so obviously it makes easy, suitable for them to do this. So they have come up with the idea of doing the medical camps. It's a one-day camp at different areas. It's always fairly close to a congregation, and so the preacher, the members of that congregation, does all the follow-up work. And so by doing this, they can go out in the community without any fear from the government, because the government looks upon that as simply social programs, and they're more than happy for you to do a social program as long as you're not really trying to evangelize. But of course they get the contacts from the people, and then later they can go back and privately teach the people, and it's working out great. They get several contacts from different people and already have several baptisms at different places as they do these camps. And so they do 2 camps a month. Every camp costs about $700, and it's working out great so far, and hopefully we'll continue that for a long time. The blind work continues to go very well. Of course, there's about 15 million blind people there in India. And, of course, every year, at the end of every year, they have a special giveaway program for rice and food and clothing and that sort of thing. At the very front there, you see one of the blind preachers. There's actually 2 blind preachers that work very closely with this work, but that is one of them there you see. And so especially in the COVID, it's been especially needful because many of the blind people are almost literally starving, because what little work and food they could get, it stopped pretty much too. And so it's really been a hard couple of years for them. But as they are converted, then Philemon also gets them involved in evangelism. He's a great encourager of people. He gets people using literature. And he says here that he's giving literature to some of the blind people. Said, now when somebody gives you something, you can give them something in return. And so he gets them involved in evangelism as well. Of course, he continued to work with the J.C. School of Evangelism, which, as was said before, is not a preaching school at all, but is designed to encourage individual Christians to be involved in evangelism. And you see literally thousands of books and magazines that was distributed. That group has baptized 22 people during the 18 months or so that they were involved in this study. They'll have another graduation of another group this fall. Of course, Shane and Emily Fisher are in India right now. They just got there this week, or this last week now. And so they're in Delhi, but they'll be there for the next 5 weeks or so. And while they're there, they'll also be attending one of the graduation programs for the School of Evangelism. The Voice of Truth continue to be, of course, one of our main works. This is kind of an estimation. It's really hard to keep up with it. But counting what's translated in the different languages, we figure we probably print about 60,000 copies of the Voice of Truth every quarter, going to different countries all around the world. And you see the great value of that, because people in other countries, they love that little piece of literature. Because remember, most times they don't have any literature at all. And so they're so glad to get that. I was in Zimbabwe, for instance, at a school of preaching with Philemon, as a matter of fact. And we were standing there talking with a group of people, and he asked one of them, I think he was one of the staff members at the school, says, what was your first sermon? And he said, well, I don't remember what my first sermon was, but I know where it came from. It came from the Voice of Truth. And so that just gives you an idea of the value of the Voice of Truth in those different countries there. Of course, we also are busy at the office. This is Shane and Emily, of course, back just about a month ago when all this came in. We have the Voice of Truth coming in. At this time, we had especially a large shipment with the Global Harvest and some other books coming in. So it was especially large shipment coming in at this time, but we always get literature and books coming in, and we had to ship them out and so forth. We also ship literature to the Philippines about every 6 months. In these boxes. These boxes cost $120 going all the way to the Philippines, which is a pretty good price for that a large amount of literature. They'll hold over 300 pounds of literature. And we seem like we're always getting more and more people there, that more and more contacts. And I guess that's a good idea. The last time we shipped it was a month ago, about 10 or 11 boxes that we shipped out. And so we've got another address for this next time that will go at least once. I don't know where we'll keep sending a box to them or not, but at least one time we'll send a box. And so, again, that's a good way to get the literature. This would be including, like Voice of Truth, it would include Bible class literature that we picked up from congregations, just a number of things that we pick up and put back to use there. In many of the countries that we go to, of course, we work in conjunction with some of the Bear Valley Extension schools. As of the beginning of this year, they had 48 schools in 28 different countries, and all those schools together baptized 4,000 people last year. So it just shows, again, the value of these schools, that you're training, as we might say, not pulpit preacher, but you're training true evangelists. And, of course, they've got more schools now. They've added more this year. And now, I might mention that all these schools are not full-time schools. Many of them, in fact, are not. They may be meeting on weekends or 1 week a month or something like that, because many times it's just almost impossible to get students to quit their jobs for 2 years, because when they get out then they won't have any jobs, and there's no churches there that's able to support them, and so they're going to be in big trouble. And so it works out better in many cases for the students to kind of keep whatever jobs they have and then work in the education along with it. And so that's the idea behind some of those, we might say, part-time schools. This is one of the preachers there in Kenya. In other countries, motorcycles is a common way of getting around, and you'll be surprised what they can get on a motorcycle. As you can see, they get a lot of people on a motorcycle. His wife is not actually on there. That is his family, all except the very last girl. She's not part of his family, but like I said, his wife is not there, so he always has to make 2 trips. One pick his wife up, and then once for the kids there. I always kind of feel sorry for the one right there in the very behind him. It looks like she's kind of getting squished right in the middle there, but that's what happened when you're the little one, isn't it? But anyway, as I said, you also get a lot of things on motorcycles. I have no idea what's in those big sacks, but they're heavy, I'm sure. We've even seen sometimes a couple of big old wood chairs strapped on a motorcycle. I don't know how they got the chairs on there. I want to get a picture of it, but we never could get close enough to get a good picture of it, but you just never know what you're going to see. They also load vehicles pretty heavy, too. This is in Zimbabwe, actually, right at the a toll area, and you see they got so much in it they couldn't even close the back door, but that's not a problem for them. They'll make arrangements around it. In other countries, of course, hand labor is a common way of doing everything. This is agriculture. On the left is Tanzania and Nepal on the right there. Of course, like I said, hand labor and agriculture especially is pretty common there. On our first trip this year, we went to Kenya and Tanzania. We've never been, well, we've been to Kenya one time back several years ago, but Paul Owino came by the office and arranged for us to come by there and do a little evangelizing with him. Many times as we go to Africa, people wonder, well, you see animals, and by animals, they're thinking about giraffes and zebras and elephants and so forth. Most of the time, you won't see those animals unless you're in a game park. But sometimes you will. This is right beside a main highway there in Kenya, and we just happened to see the zebras grazing on the side of the road, so we had to stop to take a picture because certainly you don't see that sight here. But this is one of the churches there in Nairobi, the capital city of Kenya. The preacher is actually living in a house there, and he has an awning over what we would call the driveway. Of course, he doesn't have a car, so it's not really the driveway, but it provides a good place for the church to meet there. Now, right behind us there, what looks like might be a little storage shed or something like that, that's actually a chicken coop. And so as you're worshiping, you hear the chicken cackling right behind you there. I did not really notice it, but Paula said she heard it 2 or 3 times while we were standing there. So different situation many times, but this is the congregation, good-sized group, as you can see. As you can see at the very back there, some of the people are still in the sun, and I'm sure it gets hot because it was pretty warm that day anyway, and just, if you're in the sun, I know it would be very hot there. You got a question? Yes, but I'm not sure what it is. I can't remember. You don't remember either? I have no idea what the name of it is, no. This is Paul Owino right there and his brother. They work with what's called a water filtration system, and that's their main work, and provides an opportunity for them to travel all over the country really and get in different communities, because clean drinking water is one of the biggest problems in many countries in Africa, especially Kenya. And so by offering this filtration system, they give good clean drinking water to people. But as they go into communities and talk to them about physical water, of course, it also provides them the opportunity to talk about the spiritual water. And so he travels all over the country here, working with different groups of people. At the top there is a tent. That's in a location where he just recently begun a brand new congregation there. And so we had a couple of Bible classes there. Paula taught in one of the tents and I was in the other. This is Paula's class there. Of course, it's mine. As you can see, her class was quite a bit bigger than mine, and that's fairly common. Most of the time it is. We also started translating literature into Luo language. I know Lawrence is familiar with that language. That was the area you did most of your work in, wasn't it? Yeah. And so this is Mboya. I can't think of his last name, but Mboya is his first name. And he and about 4 or 5 others have started translating literature in the Luo language. This is the Church of the Bible, their very first book they did. Since then, they've done 2 or 3 more. And so he traveled about 8 hours to meet us, and we were glad to meet him while we were there. From there, then, we went down to Tanzania. And, of course, I've been to Tanzania several times before. I was teaching in the School of Preaching there. About half of my students actually come from Kenya because it's fairly close to the border, and so they can get down there pretty easily there. Of course, this is fairly close to Mount Kilimanjaro. You might have heard of that mountain. It's one of the tallest mountains in the world. Many people go to this area to do some trekking and climb the mountain and so forth, but never fear, you will never read in my newsletter that I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. That is not on my bucket list, so to speak. So I'm close enough right there. But we've also done a lot of translating and printing in that area now. Of course, we've been doing this for the last couple of years, and they translate literature in the Swahili language, but also all around there's a lot of people that speak English. And so we print both English and Swahili literature there in Tanzania, distributed all those countries that you see there. And just recently, we sent money to print about 1,500 books into the French language, which would be shipped to the Congo, which you see is pretty close there, because in Congo, the main language there is French. And so we were contacted by a man actually lives in Arizona. He's from the Congo, and he wanted us to ship, I can't remember, 300 or 400 books to the Congo. Of course, that's a lot of books to ship from here. I have no idea what it costs, but it would be very expensive. And so talking with Barry Baggett, who lives in Nashville, works with the French program, he suggested that we might do that. And so that's what we've done. And so I don't think it hadn't got there yet. But that just shows what we can do. Obviously, no one went over there to do that, but we were able to work it out. And so, but it all came about because of trips to these areas. And then once you go there and get things set up, then of course you can work with them from here without necessarily going to do all this stuff. And so that's part of what we do when we're here, is those kind of details and things like that. So we always have a lot of things going on, emails and wiring money to different places, and so a lot of things are going on while we're here that a lot of times people don't necessarily think about. There's what I just mentioned. Church of Bible was shipped to the Congo there. This is in the Vietnam. We were going to go to Nepal and Philippines, and we did go to Nepal and the Philippines back in May and June. We usually try to go to Vietnam every year, but this time they had changed their visa requirements, and it was kind of difficult to get a visa, and so we decided not to try to go this time, but we still sent money, and they had a program. This is a picture of the teaching program they had there in Vietnam that we would have attended if we had went there. I think they also had a couple of baptisms there that you can see here right on the ocean. So maybe next year we'll be able to go back to Vietnam. But we did go to Nepal and the Philippines, both countries of which we hadn't been to since 2019 because they've always been closed to foreign visitors due to COVID. Finally, everything is pretty much opening up now. So we went to Nepal. This is one of the meetings we had there. A brand new congregation just recently began. They rented a little small room there in the capital city. And when I say small room, I mean it's a small room, probably about the size of much narrower than this pulpit stadium there. So, but it provides a good place for them to meet there anyway. But this is our main program. We're here for about 5 days. Having a seminar with different people from around different parts of the country. We were able to meet 2 different people from India. This is Kingsley and his wife from India. As you can see, they brought some books with them. They are the big helpers there in India as far as our printing of literature is concerned. He's the one we deal with actually printing literature like the Voice of Truth. We actually print that in India, and it's shipped back here. It's also shipped out to several other countries from there. Another thing we just recently started, like 6 months ago or so, we started printing like 3,000 copies of Voice of Truth, shipping to Guyana. We've done that now twice. We're not sure how it's going to work out yet. We're still kind of waiting and seeing on that, but hopefully it will. But he's the one kind of doing all of that for us there. This is Sonny David right there. You might have heard his name. Of course, he was been working with the church for many, many years. He was, and his brother was one of the first men that was converted by the church when they went to India back in the 60s. And of course, they've been faithful ever since. And even though he's getting older now, he's about 80 years old, but he's still a very powerful speaker. And there in that part of the world, pretty much anybody who's been a Christian very long is familiar with that name. And so he's a very big name in that particular area there, so they were very glad to see him. From there, we went to the Philippines, and we actually met with people in 3 different areas, as you see the different circles there. In the Philippines, the people, their common way of traveling from island to island is by boat. And, of course, it's a pretty good-sized boat. There's one just coming into the dock there. They'll put big trucks and cars and everything on that boat, so it's bigger than what it might look like it is. It'll hold a lot of people and vehicles and so forth. but of course it's kind of slow, as all boats are. And when you get to a boat, I mean, in one part you got to oftentimes get off and get another boat, and then sometimes get off and get another boat from there. So for us it'd be kind of difficult, I figure, from traveling place to place. So we did not do that. Maybe sometime we will, but this is you see some pretty sights there in the Philippines. This is actually on the road from the airport to where we were going to, and the road just kind of followed the coast there, so you had some pretty scenery along the way. We are also able to stop by for just a moment at the Macarthur Memorial. This is very close to one of the airports. This is, of course, the actual location where Macarthur actually re-entered Philippines back in World War II, and they're very proud of what Macarthur and the U.S. Army did, of course, for them. Fishing is a common livelihood there in Philippines, and this is one of the boats that you typically see there, and they'll go out in the ocean pretty good ways in that little boat. I wouldn't want to do it very much, but they don't have any problem with it at all. This is one of the programs we had. This is a preacher here and his wife right over here. He's a very hard worker. He actually speaks about 4 different times on Sundays. He meets with one group about an hour one side of where he lives. And then, of course, he meets with his own group. And then that afternoon, he traveled about another hour on the other side. And then on night, he has some kind of online Bible study or something. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but he has about 4 different sessions every Sunday. So he's a pretty busy individual, as you can see. Then does a lot of teaching at other times during the week and so forth. This is Paula's class. We had a group of ladies there. Of course, I taught the men for about 3 or 4 days while we were with him. Did some traveling around that little bus there, or truck, whatever you want to call it. It works very well. As you can see, I'm kind of on the other side over there. Yeah. It works very well as long as it doesn't rain. Of course, if you got rain, you get wet. Fortunately, it did not do much raining while we were there, so we did not have a problem with that. One of the unique things you have in the Philippines is that the government encourages all police officers to be involved in Bible studies. They think it makes them better police officers. And so this preacher, as well as the preacher from the radio program, they both meet with 2 or 3 different groups of police officers on a regular basis. And so they do it. One of the days that he was going to meet with 2 groups was on a day we happened to be there. And so I was able to meet one of the police officers. This is the chief of that particular station. He is also a Christian. He actually worships with the preacher there. It's about an hour away, and so we traveled there and met with them. So it was kind of a unique situation there to talk to police officer and have a Bible study with them. Then from there we went to the next place where the radio station is actually being broadcast, and he loves the Voice of Truth. He calls his radio program Voice of Truth International. He distributes the Voice of Truth International. He even puts his name on the side of his truck there. Now that's a pretty good looking truck, but it's not as good looking it's not as good what it looks like it is. That's kind of, the picture is kind of misleading. That's a very old vehicle, and he's done a lot of work on it, but it does get him around. But he often has quite a few people involved in the back of that with kids and that sort of thing. But like I said, this is in an area in which the church basically was non-existent 2 or 3 years ago. And so we had a program with him on a Saturday. We did not, or rather he did not want children. He did not plan for children there, did not even want children to come, because we were having a program about the church and trying to get people to go back to the Bible. Well, as you can probably figure, there was a lot of children there, about 20 or 25 children there. But Paula had been around long enough to always be prepared for anything. And so she had her visual aids with her, so she took the children and had about a 2 or 3 hour impromptu Bible class. And we was able to work it out with the others. So we had a good class that day. And most of the people you see there are not members of the church at all. They're not Christians at all, but the program is doing very well there. Then from there we went to the next place, Cebu City. This is actually where the Bear Valley has a school of preaching here. On one Saturday, Paula had a ladies program. This was the first group where that more than one congregation has been together since COVID. And even the churches there have not been meeting that long. I'm not sure when they started meeting again, but the government of Philippines has been very strict during this whole thing, and so they have not been able to do much traveling and meeting together at all. So they were so glad to get together again. I think that meant more to them than anything else there. This is the same location on the next Sunday morning. Small room, but it was full, as you can see. And of course, then this is the Baravada class that I taught that week. I had a good class with them, but there's no desk. Their desk had a little stool that you see right in front of them, so a little difficult for them to write, but they had to have a good discussion there. But about half of that class came from different islands even, so they may have traveled several hours in order to attend the class there. Our last trip that I just got back from was Uganda and Zimbabwe. I went to both of these countries for the first time last year, and this has come to be one of the highlights of our work now. This is up in the mountains there in Uganda, and I was going up there. This is kind of raining, so it's kind of dark when I was going by there. But this is up in the mountains where we have the classes and everything. And this is, of course, Terry knows all about this, but this is on a day that's not market day. Now, you look at here and you think, well, there's nobody there, but all the buildings all closed up and just nobody there. Streets are big wide and everything. Well, this is on a market day, and a big difference. On a market day, there's so many people there, you can't hardly even get down the road. Sometimes you got to blow your horn and tell them to get out of the way. To get through there. This is an area where there's not many cars or motorcycles either, for that matter. And so everybody walks wherever they go. So it's a kind of a different situation up there. This is a congregation that we're actually working with. And of course, this is Raymond here that we're doing most of the work with as far as I'm concerned. Terry works with a couple of other people over there. But we're supporting a Bible school that he's in charge of, and they make three-week sessions every year. And, of course, this is one of the sessions I was there this time. In between, of course, will be a lot of evangelism work because there's a lot of churches over there, but many of those churches do not have preachers, and many of the preachers do not have any special training. And so we noticed a general lack of biblical knowledge that you would think they would have, even among the preachers there. This is my particular class that I had there for a couple of weeks. This is the preacher's wife here right in front. And she actually walks an hour and a half to go to her school. She teaches school. That's her livelihood and helps support the family there. Then this is in Zimbabwe. And like I said, this is one of the highlights of our work. This is a preacher and his wife and his family. With his help, we've started printing massive amounts of literature there in Zimbabwe. And this literature has bringing, great results. I was able at this time to travel to different parts of the country. And everyone I talked to talked about how valuable these books were. And we need more, they says. But this is his congregation. Now, this was made when we were there last year. So this was a little over a year ago now. And now this is what the congregation looks like now. As you can see, a big difference. And he said the main difference is the literature that he'd been able to distribute. The church has been in Zimbabwe for a long time, many, many years. There's been a school of preaching there for many years, but they've never had books. They've had tracts, but they've never had any books to give out. And so they are very excited now all of a sudden to have some good literature they can hand out to people. One of the people mentioned that it seemed like in his area that people are always so busy. They just don't really have the time, or at least don't want to take the time to actually study with you, but they'll take the books. And so by doing that, you're able to still talk to people. We've also started translating literature into the Shona language and the other language. It's hard to pronounce that other language, but there's two languages. This is one of them here. He's now translating literature into Shona language. And this is the thousands, literally thousands of books that we've printed there. This is probably wrong. We've probably done some more printing. I say it's hard to keep up with. We're also we're printing the Voice of Truth there in this country now, which is not on the board there, as you can see. We also work in association with other groups. This is the Gospel Chariot. There are several Gospel Chariots that operates throughout Africa, but we also give literature to them many times. So he was there on a Sunday morning picking up some of the literature that we've just printed there. This is a small church out in the middle of nowhere. And I say nowhere, I mean literally out in the middle of nowhere. The road was basically non-existent. But it's a congregation that was started as a result of this campaign by the students at a school of preaching, and they said they used our literature that we helped them print. And so that they started this congregation here. Obviously, they have no building at all, just out under a shade tree, but they do have some posts up. So hopefully they're going to have a little awning before too long that'll kind of shade them from the rain and the sun. But this is one of the schools of preaching. There's two schools of preaching now. One I've been there for 40 years or so. This is the one that's been there a long time. The other school is Associated Bear Valley, and it's been there probably maybe 10 years or so. But both of them are big into distributing our literature. So we were there, and of course there's some of the literature we brought with us, and they loved the literature there as well. This is one of the preacher meetings we had, and of course we handed out literature to the preachers there, about 60 preachers involved in this particular meeting there. And so we're very excited about the work there into Zimbabwe. Of course, this is at the airport, so I'm just fixing to leave to come home. And so, like I said, we're very excited about the work there. There are 400 congregations or so in that country, and we're giving literature to every single one of them. And it's doing great. One that we keep getting a couple of reports from preachers there. They may say, your books helped us baptize 25 people. Another one says, your books helped us baptize 20 people, and best of all, we had 8 rededications. So it just gives you, and so that kind of stories where it makes you feel good. And so I'm really, really encouraged about the work that we're doing in Zimbabwe now with the literature, and that's, and so we appreciate your help there. And, of course, this is kind of a summary of the different types of literature we do have with the TV and books and foreign language books and so forth there. So a lot of good doors have been opened to us in the last couple of years, and we've been able to go through them. We pray that God will continue to open up some more doors for us. And, again, we appreciate your help and encouragement. We might have just a minute or two. Does anyone have any questions? I don't know of any full-time missionaries. Do you know? I've never have heard them mention of one. No. No. Okay. Thank you.